whatever you can do to make your stream more dynamic is something I think that will actually make you stand out nowadays, because you can't just have like one scene where you're playing a game and it's just a single scene that doesn't change for like 5 hours, because people will easily tune out. They're not going to be talking in your stream, and they're just going to lose interest after a while.
So last month I had a panel at TwitchCon. It was my first panel ever, and it was crazy. We packed the entire room. Apparently some of you guys couldn't even get in because the room was so full. And yes, my hair looks different. My hair hasn't been short since I was 16. I have no idea how to style this thing. Don't make fun of me. And we talked a lot about live stream productions and what you can do to make your streams stand out, how you can keep them engaging, where we get all our inspiration from. So if you've been a streamer for a while and you've already set up your lighting, your microphone, and your camera, and you don't know what to do after that, this is a great talk. Stop being cringe and paying full price for Windows with our sponsor, VIP SSD Keys. You can get a Windows 11 license for as low as $21. Just use my code NUTTY at checkout to get them for 30% off. And if you want to get them for a little bit cheaper, you can get a Windows 10 key for $15, and those can be updated to Windows 11 completely for free. You can pay using a secure payment method like PayPal. They'll send you an activation code immediately, and then you can put that in your Windows settings, and you're good to go. Check out VIP SSD Keys in the link down below.
Let's meet everyone we have on the stage with us. My name is John Balava. I'm the moderator for today. I lead developer relations at Twitch. I help third-party developers build cool stuff for creators, and that is our goal. So, thank you.
I'm Finite Singularity. I started streaming back in the COVID days. I'm a software dev. Decided I wanted to stream live coding, and surprise, surprise, live coding isn't exactly the most fascinating thing to watch someone do on stream. And so I decided to start throwing in a lot of visual effects and things, sort of like, think of it as like a gateway into getting people interested into coding. And it was going really well. Started to figure out things within OBS that I wanted to do that I couldn't do, and so I started building OBS plugins. And here we are.
I'm Addy. I go by EposVox. I've been teaching OBS since Twitch was called Justin, and these days I just watch his streams.
Surely that's not all.
I'm good.
All right. I'm Jess, or BB Jess. I've been streaming for since the COVID. I'm a theater kid turned streamer, so my streams are just whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'm having a great time.
Hey, I'm Nutty. I'm that cringe dude you find on YouTube whenever you like want to, whenever you want to like, woo, yeah, whatever that applause is for. Yeah, so anytime you guys probably look up tutorials about OBS, which probably I imagine most of you guys use, I'm probably doing one of those faces like, so yeah. But yeah, I'm also from Australia, which she doesn't believe me, so there we go.
Is that real?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Great, awesome. Thank you all. So our agenda, we're gonna do a little bit of an introduction into production. We'll talk a little bit, go into a little bit of detail of what each of you believe or feel that production means to you. We'll talk about learning resources for everyone out there who is trying to figure out what they want to do, how they're going to build, how they're going to enter their stream, and then how to level up that production once you get that train going. And then we'll talk a little bit about the challenges along the way, and then a conclusion. You got to have a conclusion. So. Let's talk a little bit about the session again, which is to equip you with strategies and suggested practices to help you learn more about OBS and the visual interactivity content that you can add to your stream. So production is obviously difficult, right? We're going to talk about enhancing the streaming experience for you and your audience, and the technologies that can help to meet your goals, and all the challenges that go along with those things. So to get started, let's talk about what production is. And so I'll give a very generic, emotionless, very clinical definition of production, which is, let's call it the overall quality and professionalism of your stream, which would include your visuals, your audio, and the viewer experience, right? And two key components of that is the high production value, which can set your stream apart from others, make it more engaging and enjoyable for viewers. And the other part of it is all the tools like OBS and the diverse plugin ecosystem. That's well put. that empowers streamers to achieve impressive production and real-time effects and those sorts of things. So kind of boils it down to the value and the uniqueness of the production. So, oh, sorry, I'm not even showing that slide. I'm the only one looking at that slide. There you go. I just read that. There you go. So let's talk about what production means to you. Let's go down, or you can jump in whenever you want. Like, what for you, other than just saying it's the visuals and audio, what is production?
So I guess I'll start.
Go for it.
You know, production to me is really how do you take these tools that are available to you and most effectively tell the story that you want to tell, right? And high production doesn't necessarily mean the fanciest, crazy stuff going on in your stream. It's reaching that effective communication of your story on your stream, whether it be involved with the game you're playing, just talking, or just chatting, whatever it is that you want to tell, and how can you do that effectively?
Similar definition for me. For me, it comes down to like the intentionality of catering every detail to either display your branding, you know, your personality, your vibe, the story you want to tell, the experience you want the viewer to have. And so there's lots of little details, like you could jump into having a blur your background or whatever, but all of it is catering the experience to exactly what you want the viewer to see and feel, and not having distractions that are making them question, like, you know, what's that in your background? Why is your bed not made? Those kinds of things.
I like that you said vibe, because I'm very much that way. My fog machine has become an extension of like, I'm so excited. Like, you know I'm excited when the lights go off and the fog starts happening. It's like a feeling for me. It's additive. It helps convey emotions that I am so terrible at putting into words.
Yeah, I have a much less profound view of what that means. I just view production as it's just everything else other than the actual entertainment part. Like, other than just being like, there's two parts. There's being the on-screen talent, and then like being an entertainer, and then everything else you do. So a lot of people think about like getting your camera, you got like the lights in the background, like all that's cool, but like people also don't think about like how are you going to control OBS? Because like one of the things that's different about streaming compared to like any other form of broadcasting is like you're the entertainer, but you're also the person controlling everything else in your stream, like changing scenes, and like how do you do that in a way that doesn't interrupt you when you're trying to entertain people at the same time. So yeah, was that good enough, guys?
That's a great definition.
Okay, cool.
So now that we have that, let's talk about learning resources and just educational resources to start your production. Yes,
He does YouTube
that's
too?
my next slide. You have to start somewhere. So let's talk a little bit about this, right? So like, where do you learn your stream production? And I think this was great visuals. Thank you, Finite, for this. You want to start with your basic production blocks. Think of it as like you found these random Lego blocks on the internet. What do you do with these? You know, and then you find these tutorials online, and you start combining those blocks, and something's forming, and it's starting to be something that's yours. And then until you finally combine all those to make something that's unique for your channel and your community. So I'm curious how you all started, where you all started learning, and maybe what recommendations you have for someone who's just getting started and has that problem of like, I open up OBS, what do I do now?
I learned over late night Discord calls. It was like 2020 and all the streamers were all over Twitch, and we would never sleep because why would we? And we would stay up till like 7 in the morning just going through like OBS and teaching each other new tricks that we could use on our stream. Shout out the Jackbox community. They know what's going on. It's just so fun. It was like we were all learning together and kind of growing, and I would find streamers that I like looked up to, Ham and Cheddar, DJ Spree, Sushi Dragon, and I would pick and I would pull inspiration, and I was like, that looks like it feels good, I want to do it.
Yeah, for me, I've been streaming for like probably almost 11 years. A lot of people don't know that. I used to be a speedrunner, and I was okay as a speedrunner, but what I really liked doing was just building. I spent more time building my stream than actually speedrunning games, which is probably why I wasn't very good at it. But like, it got to the point where like I was learning so many things and then forgetting things. that didn't have tutorials for them, and then I just started making my own ones. And I find, like, for me, that the process of making a tutorial kind of also reinforces the knowledge that I have gained. So, because the thing is, like, a lot of the tools that are available for streaming, not everything has, like, good tutorials for it, which is why I continue to try and make as many as I can. But, yeah.
I got started a very, very long time ago in a galaxy far away, before Nutty was teaching things. And so it came down to a lot of really kind of trying to combine the fields. Because back then, you had your photography and your videography and filmmaking, and all of those things did not kind of align together yet. And so it came down to like, okay, I have to learn how to use a camera, and then I have to learn how to use this obscure broadcast hardware and do it. And so it was just a matter of like finding the fields that were related to what I wanted to do, which still applies today, even though you have lovely tutorials that you can follow, mostly from him, that you can use. But I think there's a lot of extra kind of goodness you can get by really honing in on someone who does something that you want to do, even if they're not doing it in streaming. Like if they're doing, like if you have a favorite movie director or cinematographer, or you have just an entertainer who just like does cool stuff like at events or something, like trying to learn how to do what they do and then streaming that to Twitch or whatever is a lot better way to learn than just trying to purely copy the generic like streaming layout. And so for me, especially since that kind of thing didn't exist yet, we were using Flash Media Encoder and Wirecast and whatever, like it was just a matter of being like, I want to look like this production. What are the elements I need? And so just finding the resources for that.
So I'm a software dev, so I'm very good at Googling things. And in that Googling process, it was basically Epos and Nutty were like the two that I kept coming back to in terms of, Epos has amazing content on audio, and Nutty was great at teaching how to sort of take things to the next level with OBS and these outside tools that you can use with OBS. And so, there's just a lot of, at this sort of like 1 and 2 level, there's a lot of good resources out there today that I don't think existed when you were starting. But then a lot of experimentation, not being afraid to take what someone else has done and has taught you how to put those blocks together, but then maybe try to put them together in a little different way and start experimenting around. And I think that really helps you to kind of hone your craft. So.
And something else that you were all kind of touching upon is you all have different backgrounds, right? Whether it's video production or speed running, I'm sure applies somehow. But
It does, but, like,
it does.
you know.
But
Thanks for trying, though.
What other like non-obvious sources of inspiration or education would you say there are? So, like for example, you had mentioned to me After Effects.
Yeah.
Right?
So in terms of sort of taking things to the next level, and this actually drove a lot of my plugin development, is I would go on YouTube and look for some crazy effect, and it was almost always done in After Effects. And so I'd go into After Effects and mess around and see how it was done and see, oh, you need this After Effects plugin and this one and that one, and then start to think, okay, how could I do that in real time in my stream? And so when you want to get to that more advanced level, you start to look for more advanced production that might not be a direct tool that you're using, but it can give you the inspiration and the ideas to sort of take what you're doing to the next level.
For me,
Sorry.
nope, you're good.
I get a lot of my inspiration from, I play a lot of retro video games. And so I try to, like if I find like a plugin, I try to link it to some effect that I found from a video game. Like if you guys have ever played Yoshi's Island before, when you eat the fuzzies and then it gets all wavy and stuff. And then I figured out, okay, how can I create that effect in my stream and then make that a thing that my audience can redeem? And because a lot of my viewers at the time played retro video games, they can instantly understand what the reference is for. And that saves you from having to come up with like completely unique ideas from your own if you can pull from stuff that already exists. You can continue. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good. For me, back in the day, I was unapologetically a huge fan of G4 TV, and I just loved the idea of the tightly packaged, high production value, like game reviews and tech productions. Like they had a show called Tech Prawn on Attack of the Show. And it was like my first time seeing CES for the first time and E3 and like the way they just presented these things. But it was filmed, I mean, it was a television studio, but it was filmed to produce for feeling like it was live. And I wanted to take those elements and like turn that into my live stream. Because at the time, most streams were Call of Duty 4 and Linkin Park and Evanescence blasting at full volume. And so I was just like, how do we go from this to here? And so it was finding those kinds of elements, and I was doing a lot of intern work in radio and just how they integrated callers and little sound bites and things like that, and trying to figure out how you scale that down to someone's bedroom versus a whole production desk.
Mine's like a vibe. When I was a kid, I used to just dance in front of my mirror all day, every day, and I would pretend I was like putting on a show. And now I do that full time for work every day. So everything I add, I'm just trying to like, in my head, it's like Blue's Clues. It's like I'm trying to bring you along in my head. I want you to feel what I'm feeling because I'm too lazy to explain myself. So it's just like I'm chasing a vibe.
And one other thought I just had was the community. All of us up here have Discords and sort of more after the stream live community, and then our stream chat. And there are a lot of amazing ideas that folks have and are sharing, and maybe they're trying to execute that. And if you're in a position that you can help with that, then you can learn from that as well, and also bring that to the things that you do. So there's actually a pretty decent community, size-wise, of folks out there that are doing cool stuff in production.
My favorite thing is finding someone who's making something that has nothing to do with what I want to do, but are doing it so well you can't not watch even if you don't care about the thing, and trying to like dissect like why you're so enthralled. And so I'm going to give a unpaid shout out here to Shindigs on Twitter, who highlights tons of like VTuber madness of just like all these incredibly innovative things. But like I'm not a VTuber. I don't do that, but like I see that and I'm like, they basically create their own virtual reality presentation of whatever vibe they're going for. How can I at least take some of that back and apply it to me, even if we're not using the same technologies or even operating in the same dimension sometimes, and like trying to apply that backwards. And the same thing, like your favorite movie, your favorite podcast, whatever. I just love taking something from one area and applying it to another, even if it doesn't make sense. If it's what you feel, it's gonna like work for you and your audience.
A lot of times when you do that, even if the idea that you start out with, it doesn't turn out the way that you want, it evolves in ways that you didn't imagine when you started, which is pretty fun.
Great, and I think we started touching upon this, but I think once you realize how you're supposed to put all these blocks together to build something, the question is where do you go to find those things, right? So obviously, fundamentals and tutorials can be found on YouTube, people streaming it live on Twitch, streaming related forums, or even Discord parties late at night. You can. There's definitely some lot of obvious places that you can find these things. Also worth calling out, leveling up requires focusing on particular aesthetics and effects and experimenting, as you said, and figuring out what works and changing things slightly. And then success lies in continuous learning and experimenting with those new techniques to keep things fresh and the visuals appealing. So with that in mind, what resources do you use to learn, just to create, and what effects work for your stream? What, other than just saying YouTube and Twitch, what resources work for you?
I mean, for me, it's a lot of building stuff for my stream and then seeing how it goes, right? As much as I'd love to say that every effect and redeem and everything I've built on my stream has been knock it out of the park, it becomes really, really clear when you build something you think is really cool and set a really low rate to redeem it, and it gets redeemed twice. And you're like, well, I guess that wasn't what I thought it was, And so you get that instant feedback. I mean, that's one of the really cool things about live streaming in production is you get that instant feedback from your community, and just having the ability to sort of self-reflect and be okay if something didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, and also the ability to experiment and try new things and try to find that next thing that really expresses what you're feeling.
I just talk directly to the developers that make the stuff.
Go to the source.
I find we'll do a shout out for Exeldro. I think Exeldro
Yep.
carries like the community. Honestly, he does so much for us. But this is no shade on Exeldro because like Exeldro makes some pretty amazing things, but some of the UI quirks take a little bit of explaining. And sometimes when he releases something, I just straight up ask him like, how do you use this, or like what is this supposed to do? And a lot of times he'll explain to me or give me examples that aren't super clear, and I kind of just like act like as a translator for the community. But like a lot of what I do in particular, I definitely don't do on my own. Like Finite helps me a lot too because he makes a lot of plugins that you guys use. So yeah, just go straight to the source, I guess.
And that brings up another point. OBS with their plugin ecosystem is great. And so just diving into the OBS forums and seeing what's new, what new plugins are being made, and then just installing them. You can always uninstall them and just see what they do and play with them. You can come up with some really, really neat effects doing that as well, just messing around, and it's fun. So.
I think my answer is more like creatively, because I do less of the making and I do more of the using of the plugins. Music might be an obvious answer, but whenever I think of ways that I want to change up the stream, the way it looks or it feels aesthetically, I'll just change my mood and my feeling, because it's theater and we can try things. There are plugins that I saw 2 years ago that I was like, ew, that's the ugliest transition I've ever seen. I would never. And then now I'm like, oh wait, that's so modern and sexy. So just, keeping going with the flow, not getting stuck in stuff.
And that is a great segue into my next thought, which was, good job, wondering what are like your favorite production tools that you are using now, either that is for creating, say, plugins, or just using on stream.
Streamer.
For me, it would be Finite's Retro Effects plugin. That was it inspired in some way because I wanted more VHS effects for my stream. But then anything that allows for like easy integration of multicam stuff. I don't do a whole lot of it at the moment, but when I'm really digging into my setup, like I want a camera there and there and there. And so whether it's a multi-input capture card or NDI or whatever makes it easy to just get a bunch of sources in one place, then you can just go ham. And I was heavily inspired by that by finding Jess's streams where she had the like 360 cam split in half and like switching cams with the twiddler, and I was just like, I've been looking for this for 10 years and you've had it here the whole time. And so those kinds of things of just whatever allows you to do more and give you a sandbox. I'm very ADHD in that like whatever tools I want to use, I need to have in front of me. So I'm just gonna build a fresh scene collection in OBS and add every source I can think of. And then like the Lego analogy, like I start piecing them together and being like, well, this would be fun, and then I go make a graphic for it, and then my OBS crashes and I start all over the next day.
Mine's obviously the Twiddler. I love that thing. It has become like second nature, and it feels good to like be in touch and in time with the piece of technology. And then I have a hot take answer. I hope I don't get canceled for this. I love SnapCam. It's out of date, and you gotta like try really hard to still use it. But I saw Sushi Dragon pretending to be a girl one night, and I was like, I need whatever that is. And it's so fun. There's so many filters, and I was, bring it back.
Yeah, well, I said streamer, but I'm pretty sure. I'm sure most of you guys know what StreamerBot is, but there's lots of tools like it. There's one called Sammy. People use Mix It Up. There's one called Firebot. But basically what these tools do, they allow you to do anything with your stream that you want. It's hard to explain, but like they're tools that allow your viewers to use like channel points or bits, donations, whatever you want to activate things in your stream, which makes your stream a lot more interactive. The tools are just kind of hard to use because the UI is like not the best, but they're extremely powerful. Like I can't run my stream without it at this point.
I started on Touch Portal.
Yeah, there's that as well.
Yeah, my very finite singularity answer is a code editor, because when I can't figure out something to do, I just let's write something in code. But I would say, taking this in a totally different direction, you were talking about the twiddler and these other sort of hardware aspects. For me, a green screen is just, I can do so many fun things on my stream. On my stream, I've got a green screen behind me, but what I'm showing is what's actually behind the green screen. And so the lighting ends up being perfect, but then all sorts of crazy stuff like me coming out of the door behind me and doing random crazy things. And when I grow a beard, I do some of those as well, and so it allows you to have this sort of level of interactivity with your background that you wouldn't normally be able to do without using a green screen or something like the NVIDIA background removal or something like that.
And you can use 99-cent paper, green
Yep.
screen
Oh, yeah.
paper from the dollar store.
Yep.
You can have a whole window behind you. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome. Okay, so now we have some ideas flowing here, right? Now the question is, how are we powering up the production to that next level, right? And so with that in mind, reaching the highest level of quality in your stream through the visuals and audio and just overall viewer experience is what we're trying to do. So it's essential to stand out among many other streams. You want to be unique. And a lot of viewers expect a professional and polished experience at this time. It's not the Justin TV days.
Unfortunately.
And with the increase of the content quality across platforms, streamers who want to invest in production are likely to attract and retain viewers, which also helps with a strong community engagement. So yeah, I'm just curious before I get into more questions, do any of these particular statements resonate with any of you?
For me, it's the standout element. Like, I think a lot of people get really confused when they hear high production value and they think they need to go out and buy a $2,000 mirrorless camera and an SM7B and a Go XLR and RGB lights. And that doesn't help you stand out when everyone is doing that. Like, it's cool to have a shallow background, but like, I personally have become less in favor of having a big old tack sharp mirrorless camera in my face. I have very big pores on my nose. I don't sleep a lot. I prefer to focus on the elements that actually make it like someone tunes into your stream and either they've seen it before and they immediately recognize, they're like, yeah, that's so-and-so's stream because of the vibe, because of the presence, because of whatever, or it really it makes you stop. Like if you're, picking through streams or whatever would convince someone to just stop on your stream for a minute and be like, how did they do that? How do you have a 360-degree camera in real time 5 years ago when that wasn't possible, split in your stream? Or how do you have, there's this one guy that has a whole stream setup that is just a camera pointed at a stack of CRT televisions, and his cameras run through one and his overlays are another, and I'm sitting here I have a room full of these. Why didn't I think of this? I need to, take an element of that. It doesn't need to be the fancy A7S III and Shure microphone. It can be whatever is to you, but it's got to feel like you. Even if someone doesn't recognize you because they've never seen you before, if they attach whatever they see to you, they're gonna come back.
Yeah, I've noticed that I think a lot of people care about the actual fidelity of their stream, but I think at this point we're past just because everybody has mirrorless cameras at this point. It's not really anything new. So something that I realized a few years ago is, have you guys ever been just watching the news and it's just two people talking? But the next time that happens, just count how many camera angles that they use. They could easily just capture it with just one camera, but they don't do that. They have one shot zoomed in on each person that they switch every 5 seconds. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. So for my stream, I had the option of buying one really, really good camera, or just buy 10 cheaper cameras and just set up 10 cameras around my room. And then I figure out a way to just keep changing the angle so it shows something fresh every 5 seconds that keeps the audience more engaged. Because now when people come to my stream, they're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. And that's wait, there's camera angles here. What's going on in this part of the room, this part of the room? So whatever you can do to make your stream more dynamic is something I think that will actually make you stand out nowadays. Because you can't just have one scene where you're playing a game and it's just a single scene that doesn't change for 5 hours. Because people will easily tune out. They're not going to be talking in your stream, and they're just going to lose interest after a while.
Your forehead does not need to be in 4K.
That's why I wear a hat.
And I would say another thing is something unexpected, right? You add something in that people don't think that they're necessarily going to see on your stream. You know, for me with coding, it was how can I inject a little bit of fun into this? And I came up with these clones that one was a pirate and comes out with pirate speak and basically reviews my code in pirate speak. And it's absolutely absurd. And most of the time, the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But every once in a while, it hits home. But it's a redeem that constantly gets redeemed on my stream, and people really enjoy it. And it breaks up the more, I wouldn't say monotony, but it breaks it up and makes it more entertaining. And it adds that interaction that the viewer can control some of the stream as well.
That's what got me to stick around on one of your streams the first time. Yeah. I'd followed you for your plugins, and I was just like, I'll pop in. I don't program, but whatever. And initially with the layout, I was like, yep, that's a coding stream. I don't know what's happening. Okay, moving on. And then you had some sort of redeem that made you full screen, and you like froze and glitched out or whatever. And I was just like, well, now I can't see the code. And then a couple seconds later, I was like, well, that's really cool. And I didn't know what was happening in the code anyway, so that's that's your job. That's not my job. So it was fun.
Nice. And are there any particular production projects or aspects? You mentioned the cameras, but for you all that you're really particularly proud of that is like unique to your channel?
I like the mini games that I've made for my stream. I really want to make more of them. I don't know if you've seen, but I was saying earlier I love like retro games. And you guys ever played like Pokemon Stadium? You got like the mini games. I've loved those when I was a kid. So I was like, how can I take something like that and build it into my stream that my whole audience can interact with? So if you remember the game with like the Pokemon, they fly across the screen and then you have to like count them.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that was such an awesome game. So I just built it into my stream. So every time I like go take a bathroom break, I'm like, we're gonna play the Streaming Stampede game, and then the Pokemon fly across the screen. It looks like exactly like the game, which I don't think Nintendo will like for me. but like, and then my audience can like type in like the number of Pokemon that they saw, and whoever guesses the right wins. And it's like a great way to keep the stream engaging when I'm not there. And it's also just like people love that part of my stream. So I like making stuff like that. Probably it's probably like my favorite thing that I've made so far.
I've got one where Stream Chat can turn me into my dog. And the dog codes. It's called Ollie-oriented programming. And the reason it was a big challenge is because trying to get a German Shorthair pointer to sit and like look into a camera for like 2 minutes to get a good loop was not easy. But thank you, honey. My wife helped. She was like, yeah.
For me, early on, it was my audio quality. Having had a little bit of a radio background, it killed me how many live streams at the time were just like headset mics or, you know, really cheap, not to name any specific brands here, microphones that were really common, and then either would be set across the desk where all you hear is PC fans and them shouting, or like they'd eat it and you'd hear all the mouth sounds and the static and everything. And so, like, understanding why things were set up a certain way in the radio booth,
Sorry, you were saying? My bad.
understanding like why things were done a certain way and that way, and getting the same kind of microphones at the time and whatever, like figuring that out early on was kind of cool. These days, everyone has everything, so it's not as big of a deal. But for the rest of that, it's like, I feel like every time I stream, I add in more elements that make it feel like I'm streaming from like the year 2006. Like I've got my just chatting scene is now basically a MySpace layout with the blinky icons and the cat that crawls across the screen and all that kind of stuff. And so like my goal is to slowly just go from chasing, 4K and high production to like pretending we're on dial-up again and just like really immersing in that world. And I have someone I've been waiting for like 9 months on a commission. I said I wasn't a VTuber, but like a VTuber model where I want to be able to like take a break, like, because studio lights get really hot. I have air conditioning in my garage studio that gets really loud. I want to be able to take a break and then just come out basically as like Toonami Tom and just be like, today we're watching some Naruto and then Goku's gonna kill Cell tomorrow. And like have that kind of vibe going while I like am not on camera and can socially kind of decompress for a minute. And so anything that I do with that feels a lot better than just trying to be like, I'm the stream professor and I do everything perfectly because that never happens. That never happens.
can I brag about? I feel proficient in my, like, whatever I have going on in my little one-woman show. I feel like I've got my timing down, and I feel like I'm really working with the overall concept in my head. Like, I know what I want, and I know what I want to happen, and I feel really confident that I can make it all happen thanks to so many tutorials and streamers that I've gotten to look up to.
A lot of that comes down to your theater skills too. Like
I
we've
love
been
the
talking about learning
theater.
resources, but you want to improve production value, go take like public speaking, improv, or theater classes, and you will just kind of naturally perform better. And that matters way more than whatever you've done in OBS. Like,
Sitting with my stream deck, I feel like I'm back in stage management class. I'm like, oh, and it's time to go, and it's time to go. Just like calling it in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the tools that are available there are specifically for making it easier for you to focus on the actual entertainment side of things. So
Another great segue, because I was going to follow that with, you know, what of those high production elements that you've added, how has it maybe surprisingly helped you with your content, or a maybe surprising element or reaction from your community?
I cried to my moderators the night I got a mirrorless camera because I felt so insecure that for the first time people could see like my skin. I was so used to using like that 360 webcam was a $20 camera I found at Office Depot, and it was meant for like office tables, so you
Right.
could see everyone sitting at the meeting. And I was like, oh, I'm using this so I can shake my butt on Twitch. But I remember just sobbing. I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna see I'm so ugly. And it was the biggest change overnight, but that was like a turning point in myself and in like the kind of show I wanted to produce. My, microphone was still shit, but the show looked good.
for me, it was the Stream Deck, and I've shilled it for enough years, but like I was one of the first people to really like get it, having, I've said it 3 times now, having worked in radio, whatever, being used to big mixer consoles and all of those things. Like that first realization I had when I didn't have to Alt-Tab out of a game to change scenes, and you have that whole OBS stutter and your window minimizes or whatever, and just being like, boop, and it's there. And of course, you make it more distracting because you're like, all right, guys, I gotta hit my Stream Deck button to make this happen, and it's part of the experience. But like having that, whatever it is, it doesn't need to be specifically a Stream Deck. There's a lot of options now, but having something where you more or less seamlessly just kind of make something happen on stream, you feel so powerful. You feel like,
God.
yeah, like I've had people come into my streams and be like, all right, how's he editing video? How's he editing his real-time video? And I'm like, how indeed? And so that kind of thing.
in addition to this, I'm like obsessed with just different ways of like controlling your stream. I uploaded a video last week that no one watched about like controlling OBS from your watch. I love that kind of stuff. I think foot pedals I've been using for a while have been huge. I wish I could just have like 20 foot pedals under my desk, but like being able to just seamlessly change scenes without having to like look down and then like navigate through folders in a Stream Deck is like a real game changer for me. Because like if it's easier for me to actually change scenes, I'm going to do it more, and that's what keeps the stream more dynamic. So yeah.
I don't know if you saw it, but when you said foot pedal, all 4 of us in unison nodded.
And for me, in terms of hardware, I mentioned the green screen, which became a huge part of my stream. But for me, it was really getting good lighting. Because when you start with a green screen and you don't have decent lighting, it's an uphill battle. And it's not going to look the way you see it in your mind. And so getting a good lighting setup, and it took me probably 6 months of just tweaking exactly where my lights are, because I don't have much space in my studio. And so my green screens, like they tell you, have at least 4 feet between you and my green screen's 18 inches behind me. But I get comments all the time like, I don't know how your green screen looks that good when it's that close to you, and it's because I spent an ungodly number of hours just slightly tweaking lights, and as good as like the Elgato clamps are, they're a pain to move like half an inch over when you have to do it over and over again. So just working on getting that lighting, I think, was a big game changer for how I stream.
Nice. Okay. Let's move on to challenges, because those do happen. I think we've already mentioned OBS crashing, which I'm sure we've all experienced. But so before I get into the details here, I'm curious to know, because it's what everyone wants to know, what are the standout moments for you that you feel comfortable sharing where things have gone completely off the rails on your stream?
I think a funny moment was just because it was purely out of my control. The first time I tried streaming Warzone, whenever that came out, so 2019, because that was the year for that Call of Duty or whatever, back when I still did game streaming, there was some sort of bug with the game and the way OBS captured it and whatever, where the frames came in out of order. And so instead of just 60 frames per second, it'd be 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 7, 6. And so it just looked like this most ridiculous mess. And I'd sit here with everything I knew about troubleshooting OBS and pinging the devs and being here are my logs. Everything is performing fine. Nothing is not performing, but there was still an issue. And it took a while for all that to be patched up or whatever. But just looking at that, just one of those funny moments of how do I help everyone else figure this out when there is no tangible explanation in front of me for why this is happening, because it was completely just out of my control. But it looked very nauseating.
I showcase a lot of plugins immediately when they come out because I have no patience. So I'm the type of person that you guys know you should never update OBS or Windows before a stream. I never adhere to that ever because I want to be on the bleeding edge. And it is a little bit embarrassing when I'm showcasing a new plugin that maybe he's made or Exeldra's made. And I'm this is such a cool plugin. And then as soon as I start streaming it, it crashes everything and it makes them look bad, which I'm sorry.
when I released the composite blur plugin, your stream crashed probably 15 times during that stream. Yeah. It wasn't my plugin. It wasn't my plugin. And Nutty kept saying it's not the plugin, but everyone in chat is oh, it's that new stupid blur plugin. And I'm watching and I'm oh no. Oh no.
I was wired in until I got to be wireless with my Twiddler and my headset for the longest time. I was just buying USB extenders and I was dancing and under wires because I knew I wanted the freedom of walking around my apartment, but I couldn't figure out how to do it yet. So that was a little frustrating and embarrassing. You'd step on a wire and then you're just screwed for a while. I can't think of any other technical difficulties.
Yeah, I had my first big raid. Selma, White Panther. She raids me, and my stream immediately crashed. I'm oh my god, a big, and the bot of it, I'm oh my god, a big. And I'm
every big raid I've had came 30 seconds after I said, all right, I'm wrapping up the stream, guys.
Yeah.
Always.
I've had channels I never knew I existed. As soon as I'm all right, I've been live 3 hours, I'm exhausted, I'm going to hang it up. I get a 300-person raid, and I'm all right, we're keeping it going.
So yeah, there are difficulties and there are technical difficulties, and I guess with the quality the quality production involves significant challenges, right? Including mastering the complex tools that you're using, investing time in creating custom assets, and managing that technical demand while you're live streaming. Foot pedals. And of course, production value is just one part of being an effective streamer. That is doesn't even touch the entertainment value and what you're actually bringing as a person to the stream. And of course, balancing the focus on production while cultivating that engagement with your audience and your community is also a challenge. So, with all those different aspects said, what do you find today to be the most difficult aspect of putting together, a good production, a good stream? And it could be solvable, something that you hope to solve one day. But what seems to be the challenges today?
I think for me, it's when I get an idea in my head and I really want to just execute perfectly on something. And it can be extremely, extremely hard to execute on a vision with the tools at hand. OBS is fantastic, the plugin ecosystem is fantastic, but there's certain things that are just very, very difficult to do in a way that fits your vision. And so being a very technical person, I'm like, okay, well, I'll build a tool. And a lot of times it's not about building the tool, it's about figuring out how to get the pieces to all fit together. And that, there's some bigger stuff that I've built in terms of effects and whatnot on my stream that it has been a real challenge. And because I try to build in public, I've got the peanut gallery there watching me, trying to do it, which I love. And I have rage quit from time to time where I've just, because when you're out there building it in public, it's a vulnerable position. Everyone is seeing your thought process. They're seeing how you're putting it together. And that can be extremely, extremely powerful. Like, you can build some really cool stuff and have some inspiration when you're building in that way. But there's other times where it goes the other way. And it can be, a really, tough situation as a streamer. So
For me, it's been similar, but like kind of the reverse. Since I don't do as much live, it's staying consistent while trying to execute those ideas, because I will get whatever crazy setup or graphic idea in my head and spend like 3 or more weeks on it, except I don't stream until it's done. And then I finally go live and I'm like, hey guys, I got this really cool thing I worked really hard on, and it's like 3 seconds worth of screen time. And like, no one's as impressed as I am because they don't invest in it. And they're like, we're just glad you're finally live. And I'm like, no, the thing. You gotta care about the thing. And they're just like, we're just glad to see you, man. And I'm just like, no. I'm not gonna stream anymore until I build the next thing. And it's just, it's just like trying to, like was said, like balance that, trying to do cool stuff while also just streaming, because ultimately your audience just wants to see you, and like they want to see you. They won't want to see you if you weren't doing the thing they subscribed for necessarily. So you're pulled in both directions, but yeah, it's a very hard balance to really figure out sometimes.
My stream has kind of become what I describe as a house of cards, because as I'm like trying to push the boundaries, I like add more and more to my streams. I have like over 100 scenes in OBS. I have like 400 sources, and it's become very difficult for me to add even simple ideas without breaking something else. So one of the exciting developments, which I hope happens soon, is someone is working on a plugin that will help you like identify which sources in OBS are causing the most issues. So like. I will definitely make it. Yeah. It's actually very exciting. No one. That was a thing like a while ago. No one was excited about it until I said something. Like, but I hope that's one of the things I'm looking forward to coming out the most, which hopefully will happen by the end of the year, and I will make a video about it.
You know what you need to do? You need to have a second stream that is just streaming that, so when the first one crashes, you just like do a 180 and be like, I'm glad you're here. And just do like a full like post-mortem of why it crashed.
Dude, the first stream after I was finally told to go through all my sources and turn it off when it's not active was like life-changing. And I was like, that seems like such an obvious thing, but no, it took me 2 hours to sift through OBS and manually turn everything off that I wasn't using.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's soon. It will be a lot easier for you guys to identify what goes, because I know that happens to a lot of you guys here.
Yeah. I think my biggest difficulty right now is like a aesthetic shift. I feel like I went so hard over the past 3 years with interactivity and with like, okay, chat, you do this, you do this, you do this, where now I'm looking for tools where I can be the showman, and I'm like, you guys sit back, relax, and let me do all the work. So I think I'm trying something new there, and finding new tools that let me do that has been interesting.
Cool. With all of the amazing technology and production quality that you have already added to your channel, I'm going to pose a question to you that hopefully is not like an existential crisis, but do you feel like you've hit the upper limit? Do you feel like you can continue to add more? or do you feel like there's a plateau, and how do you overcome that?
I want animatronics so bad. It's all I've ever wanted. I want a talking tree that sounds like Uncle Iroh and is like, "Thank you for subscribing." It's
No
all I
limits.
want.
Drink some tea.
I know I'll get there someday.
I mean, deep inside, I'm a plugin dev, right? I love building plugins and coding plugins, and there are so many things that I want to have available in OBS. There's probably an upper limit, but I don't know if I'll be around long enough to like code it all up. I should clone myself, yes.
I think for me, it's always evolving. Like my interests and stuff always shift just a little bit, that I get bored or whatever. Like I used to have a really tightly packaged stream layout that I was really proud of. I paid way too much money to someone who did like visuals for movies and stuff for, and I was just like, this is great. And then after like 9 months of it, especially when I was actually streaming consistently, I'm like, but I'm a little bored now. What if I add this in here? What if I want to shift it? And so I think there's always an evolution, even if it's not just continuing to climb some sort of ladder of quality. But I also think streaming in general has kind of a bell curve of production value. Like once you get successful enough or like established enough, you could just draw something up in MS Paint and pull up like an old C920, and people are going to show up. And then you kind of go back to basics, and you're like, all right, so what do I want to add from there? And it's almost like you just like completely start over. And so I'll be shipping you my live streams on VHS tapes starting in 2025.
I've honestly felt like I've hit my ceiling for like a really long time now. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, dude, I don't even know how I could like add to the stuff that I've done to my stream. But then I look in retrospect at some of the things I've added over the past 2 years. I look at my stream from 2 years ago, and I'm like, I actually have added a lot more than I think I have. The other thing is like I've thought about like next steps for what I want to do, because I'm like running out of my space in my room. So I'm like, I've been thinking about moving into like a bigger space, but
Warehouse time.
yeah, like Sushi Dragon. Yeah, but I'm trying to find a balance, because I don't want to be one of those people that move into like a big studio and then kind of lose the vibe that I have in my current space. So point is like I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do next, but that's how I've felt for probably the past like 2-3 years anyway. So who knows where I'll be in like a year or two.
Nice. And we're already rounding out to the conclusion of our panel. But I do want to remind everyone, and especially if you came in later, that there is a dedicated Q&A that is at 6:30 in the room behind us in the Twitch Talks room. So if you have any further questions for the panel, we will be over there. And I'll hand it over to you, sir, for some final remarks.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you all for being a part of this panel. I had this idea to put these amazing folks together here to talk about this stuff, because it's a lot of fun, and these are the people that I learn from. And yeah, thank you all for coming. I hope it was valuable, and I hope to see you all over in the Q&A session.
That's how you know he's new to content creation, is he's good at planning stuff.
Thank you, everyone.
Animatronics. Maybe. I want them so bad.